Hey, what's up guys, Rockskull here, and today I wanted to talk a bit about the recently released Heroes Ascendant stories, and also just the current unfortunate state of Overwatch 2 lore in general. If you don't know already, Heroes Ascendant is a collection of short stories made by a bunch of different authors that may or may not be still part of the Overwatch team. I have a great feeling these Ascendant stories are put under the radar by many, as the promotion for them wasn't that crazy, and also just a lot less people read nowadays. I read most of the stories myself, so I wanted to highlight some of my favorite stories, and then go into what might be the future of Overwatch lore. First story I wanted to briefly talk about is a Friendly Rivalry. This one features all of our current Junker friends Junkrat, Roadhog, Junker Queen, and Hamster. With no surprise to anyone, it starts out with Junkrat and Roadhog finding themselves on trial to be executed in Junkertown, due to the crimes they've committed. After successfully defending themselves from getting executed by Wrecking Ball, Junkrat eventually does get them out of this by convincing Junker Queen of a secret treasure that lies behind the final door of an Omnium. Before Junkers set out for this Omnium, and after a bit of scrapping, they eventually do get in. Junker Queen then tells Junkrat and Roadhog to leave, and the story ends with her asking Wrecking Ball if he could get it flying. This definitely says to me that this is some sort of Omnic ship that the Junkers might use to get outside of Australia for future events, which is quite interesting. We'll get to this a bit more in the next story. Before we move on to it, an interesting interaction from this one I wanted to point out was when Junker Queen says to Roadhog, "I was really looking forward to watching you die." Then Roadhog just replies with, "Me too." This really stood out to me, as we haven't actually got that much on Roadhog's character in a long time, and I think this simple line really shows his current state of mind. Not really happy with his life and who he turned out to be. Hope we get more about him in the future. Next story I wanted to talk about that's pretty much a follow-up to a Friendly Rivalry is Thoughtless Gods. This one specifically goes a lot into the history of our Hamster friend Wrecking Ball, and just what exactly happened to him when he was at the lunar colony. The story starts out with him seeing a newsfeed about Liu Chang Interstellar, his creators, getting attacked by Null Sector. Seeing this, he gets a flashback to some of his earliest memories of the colony. In this flashback, he tells tales of him getting separated from his family, constantly injecting needles into him for months, and pretty much watching his family members die in front of him as the doctors give him the same injections they gave him. Very messed up stuff, and it definitely gives us a clear vision on how he ended up as the grumpy hamster we know today. After this flashback, he realizes he can probably get parts for that ship mentioned in the last story at Lijiang Tower, this of course being where Liu Chang Interstellar resides. After he shows up at the place, we get another flashback, and in this one we get the story of how he met Winston. Hammond was actually trying to use the vents to figure out an escape plan when he ran into Winston, or as the book calls him, Specimen 28. Hammond gives Winston a peanut butter candy bar when he realizes he's in a similar boat to him. Winston of course loves this, and makes good friends with Hammond, with both of them planning on big dreams to leave Earth together. I think it's important to mention that neither of them could actually speak at the time too, using mainly sign language to communicate instead, which I think makes this interaction pretty cute to imagine. After this flashback, he goes to the top of the tower to find Dr. Chow, who he remembers as one of the people who experimented on him back then. He holds back on killing her to get more information. He then learns that there are still apes living on Horizon Lunar Colony after the rebellion. If you don't know what rebellion I'm talking about, the story does also go into a flashback for this as well. Pretty much all the apes that were experimented on the Horizon Lunar Colony had a Planet of the Apes moment, and rebelled against the humans. Hammond wanted no part in rebelling against the humans at the time, instead using this as an opportunity to escape. He runs into Winston building a rocket that looks similar to the plans they made together, and watches him jump into the cockpit. Hammond realizes in this moment Winston isn't even planning on taking him with, and is going to leave on his own. This explains the overall bitterness he has towards Winston in game, and confirms this interaction he has with him.
Hammond, we were friends on Horizon. Where did we go wrong?
Perhaps it was when you stole his rocket design.
Oh no! I found that in the system. It was an accident.
Was it also an accident when you left for Earth without him?
Back to the current day, knowing the apes are still at the colony, Hammond lets them know they are being watched from the tower. After this, Hammond gets ambushed by a bunch of guards. He narrowly escapes, and lets Dr. Chow know he's only keeping her alive so she can watch the empire she built be dismantled by him. Then after escaping, he locates the parts he needed for the ship and returns back to Junkertown. This was definitely one of my favorite stories, as we got so much lore out of it for Hammond in the Horizon Lunar Colony. I really hope we get more in the future about what happens to the apes that are still living at the colony, as Hammond does say near the end that he would be willing to have the apes help with his future plans if possible. Another story I wanted to talk about is the one called Unity. This one is about a robo-death horse Orisa, and kind of delves into who her character actually is now after the rework. It also goes into her creator Eefi's current character as well. We never really got anything significant about them besides some voice lines in game since Overwatch 2's release, so this one was definitely a welcome story for me. A short summary for this story is that Eefy has a talk with Soldier in the beginning that makes her realize that maybe they should think about helping those outside of Mbani. Eefy starts to make these little robots called Junies. These are apparently 6-legged little robots she created that could help with with everyday tasks. But Eevee wanted to upgrade them further. She does this by actually installing them with protective barriers, similar to what Overwatch 1 Orisa had. She also gives them a couple other things to help those in dangerous situations. She hopes with these she can feel safe about leaving Numbani. Eventually, though, Orisa comes in and catches Eevee tinkering with these bots. She starts to make the assumption that she's making these little robots to possibly replace her, which upsets Orisa and she runs off. After a bit of reminiscing about Orisa's growth, Eevee sees that Null Sector is actually invading Numbani. She uses the upgraded Junies to help fend off against Null Sector's attacks, and then eventually she runs into Orisa again. They were both still a bit bitter about their previous interaction, but they put the majority of their focus on defending the city. Orisa and Eevee's Junies of course end up successfully doing so. After things finally slow down, Orisa and Eevee again have a talk about what they should do next. Orisa was still quite stubborn about just protecting Numbani, but eventually sees that the Junies actually do a decent job protecting the city. So she then agrees with Eevee about leaving Numbani, and they both set out to help others outside the city. Now I wouldn't call this one my favorite story out of the ones I read due to the climax being a little but I still definitely wouldn't consider it bad. It's nice to see Orisa's current character in action for once, how Eevee is doing, and what she's going to do in the current day. Final story I want to go over here that I think has some of the biggest lore drops is Lucky Man. Before I begin talking about the story, I should mention that it is not one I read myself, as it's not available publicly yet. This summary is mainly coming from outside sources, so be sure to correct me if I'm wrong about something or miss something important. Anyway, the story is mainly about Sombra, Soldier 76, and what was the actual cause of the fall of Overwatch. It begins with Soldier going to meet up with an informant. He eventually finds out this is Sombra, and she tells him that something she has been chasing for a long time may have something to do with the big questions he's been asking. Answers she believes could be found in a nearby UN warehouse that contains remnants of the Overwatch Swiss headquarters. Soldier hesitantly agrees, not fully trusting Sombra, but realizing this could be the only opportunity he has to find real answers. Eventually, they get through this warehouse to a vault. In this vault, Soldier sees many familiar things that were part of Overwatch, but eventually finds this flat disc that apparently absorbs light. He claims it isn't Overwatch nor UN technology. Sombra scans this disc and finds a logo that has an eye with 3 dots above and 3 dots below. She informs Soldier that she has heard whispers of a power greater than Talon, and that this is their mark. Soldier also tells Sombra that Reaper seemed too surprised that day Overwatch fell, and if it was Talon, he would have known. Sombra advises Soldier to start looking in Oasis, while she investigates the disc further. Then they go their separate ways. A really crazy story here, with some lore drops we haven't heard since Sombra's origin story release trailer. If you don't know what I'm talking about, back in her origin story, she mentions a time where she went too far with her hacking, and that same organization with the eye mentioned earlier is shown on screen. She then shows off this big diagram of connections near the end of the trailer, with this eye logo in the middle of it all. Who or what this eye represents, or if these connections actually mean something, is unknown to this day. It's great to know though that this is actually still important to the lore, and we got a few more tidbits saying that it was probably the actual cause for the fall of Overwatch. I unfortunately don't have time to talk about my theories on what this is right now, as I feel like I could come up with so many, but if you all want to see a video on that, I'll happily do so. After reading these stories, it does really make me sad about the current state of Overwatch PVE. The stories have such big lore drops, and all lead to something teasing more. Big shout out to those on the Overwatch team who made these stories, especially since they may or may not be on the Overwatch team after the layoffs. I can only really hope with videos like mine going over these stories, more people will actually see the epicness in the Overwatch lore. If we get more people like me to talk about it, there's a chance that devs may reconsider bringing some form of the PvE back into the game. Or maybe we can see it in some other way if the devs really don't have faith in the PvE. Like I could see a great animated TV show being made of this, movies, or just more of those classic cinematics in general. I thought that A Great Day animated short they released recently was fantastic, and can only hope they do more like it. Anyway, that's all I wanted to go over in this video about the current state of Overwatch lore. You can let me know your thoughts on these stories and the current state of it all in the comments. Also let me know if you want to see more of these lore videos, as I do kind of enjoy making them. Make sure to leave a like as well if you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.
Rock skull. All I want to do is stream all night. Lobby full, rock skull. Never gonna play with me, but it's alright.